Hello and welcome back. Thank you for watching. This is a second video dealing with dividing fractions, dividing with fractions. And we're going to take it a step further. We're going to look at dividing with fractions where it is not just a unit fraction. So the fraction doesn't always have a 1 as the numerator. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I want to show you this idea of something called a reciprocal. That's what this question up here is saying, is what is a reciprocal? My guess is you haven't heard that word before. It doesn't come up often in conversation, but it is a handy word and a handy term to know. So we're going to look at that right now. So I have 3 examples here. I have 3/4. I'll label that A. I have 2/3. We'll call that B. And we'll have 8 labeled C. As you can see, I'm still good at coming up with clever names for things. And I'm going to show you an example of a reciprocal, and I'm going to see if you can figure out what it is or how it works, okay? So I'm going to show you the reciprocal of 3/4. The reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. See what I did there? All right, well, let's look at another one and see if you can figure it out, or maybe you already have before I do it here. So the reciprocal of 2/3, yeah, it's 3/2. So it's not anything super complicated. What is going on here? Yeah, all we're doing is kind of flip-flopping the denominator and the numerator. They're trading places, if you will. So it's not super complicated, like I mentioned, but it is a handy thing to know. And I also want to show you that it does work for whole numbers, like example C here. I can find a reciprocal, or I rather should say 8 has a reciprocal. Can you figure out what it is? You remember that 8 wholes can be written as a fraction? Oh yeah, that's right. So the reciprocal of 8 would be 1/8. Okay, so we're going to keep that idea in mind. Tuck it into the back of your head for a minute. We're going to come back to it very shortly. But I want to pick up with what we left off with last time. So let's look at a quick example of something we did before. So we're just going to do 3 divided by, let's do 4ths, okay? So I'll get our 3 wholes just to visualize this. All right, let's see if I can actually make them rectangles and not make them something else. Oh, good, I was successful. So I'm going to divide 3 by 1/4. That means I'm splitting each of these wholes into 4ths. So I'm just going to split them into 4ths. Oh. So what do I have here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh yeah, 12. And that pattern we noticed last time, it looks like we're multiplying the whole number by the denominator. And if you remember that, that's fantastic. And hopefully that little refresher helps too if you maybe were a little unsure. So let's look at an example that doesn't have a unit fraction. That would be this right there as a 1 in a numerator, okay? So let's look at a different example. We'll look at this top one first. We're going to split 4 into 2/3, to 4 divided by 2/3. So that means I'm going to take each of these wholes and split them into thirds. Nothing too fancy so far. But I'm not looking for each one individually now, because this tells me I'm looking for 2 of them. So I'm looking for every 2. So here is a group of 2/3. I'll try to do them each a little different. So there is a group of 2/3. I'll do polka dots for these 2/3. So there's another group. I'll cross-hatch these, I guess. So there's 2/3. You know what, I'm going to use a different color. That would always work too. There's 2/3. And here's 2/3. So how many groups was I able to make? I have, let's switch colors again. I have 1 there. I have another one there. I have one right there because there's two of them. I have one here, I have one here, and then one more there. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 4 divided by 2/3, I'll try to write it a little neater so I'm not trying to squeeze it in here. 4 divided by 2/3 equals 6. So our pattern before of multiplying the whole number times the denominator didn't quite work, did it? Because 4 times 3 is 12. And clearly 6 and 12 are not equal. So something else is happening. And do you remember what we talked about at first with this whole idea of reciprocal? See if you can figure that out. Can you figure out what's going on? This 2 plays a part. I wonder if you can figure out what's going on there. We're going to look at another example here, and I bet you'll get it. Okay, so let's go down to this bottom one. 6 divided by 3/4. So we'll split these into fourths. So there's a fourth, there's fourth, there's fourths, there's fourths, there's fourth, and then fourths. Okay, and again, let's figure out how many groups of 3/4 there are. So there's 3/4. There's 3/4. And try to keep it simple. There's 3/4. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3 right there. So there's another group. Use gray. Who doesn't like gray? There's 1, 2, 3. You can see this isn't the most efficient way of doing it, is it? But it does help us visualize it so that we can make sense of what's going on and move on to the more fun strategies and not always making a visual. It looks like we've got room for one more. Oh, light blue. Why not, right? So how many were we able to make? I guess we'll go back to, no, I don't want to do black. We'll do this green. So we've got 1 in the red, 2 in the dark blue, 3 in the orange. The yellow makes 4, the gray is 5, the light green is 6, the purple is 7, and then this lighter blue is 8. So 6 divided by 3/4 gave us 8. And again, if we look at our original idea from before, 6 and 4, 6 times 4 isn't 8, it's 24. So how is that numerator playing a part here? Can you figure it out? Do you see what's going on here? Remember that idea of a reciprocal, of flipping the fraction? The numerator and denominator are changing places. So 4 divided by 2/3, 6 divided by 3/4. Let's kind of just clear the page, clean it up a little bit. Oh, I already forgot. How great is that? That's all right. 4 divided by 2/3, 6 divided by 3/4. So this was 6 and this was 8. And we know that 4 times 3 is 12. How can I go from 12 to 6? Oh, I divide by 2. And look, the 2 is right there. And 12 divided by 2 is 6. Does that work down here? 6 times 4 is 24. And 24 divided by 3, because that's the numerator, 24 divided by 3 is 8. So it looks like I multiply by the denominator. So I multiply that, and then I divide this. Well, what's really going on? And this is the fancy term you're going to hear a lot, promise. My wife is a high school math teacher. I hear her say it a lot. You're actually multiplying by the reciprocal. So instead of 3/4 you're dividing, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. You're going to flip it. So 6 times 4/3. And 6 times 4 is 24. 1 times 3 is 3. And that gets you 8. And if I go back up to this top example, 4 times the reciprocal, so 3/2. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2. 12 over 2, 12/2, I'm running out of room, is 6. So dividing with a fraction, what we're really doing is multiplying by the reciprocal. You will do this a lot in 6th grade. I know that was a lot to do. You're going to get it, you're going to understand it, and you're going to be just fine. Okay, but now you've taken your first steps into dividing with fractions, and you should be proud that you've come this far, because this is some pretty challenging stuff we're doing. So thank you for watching. I hope it made sense. You can always go back and watch it again.